Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Nedarim daf Samach Beis. We're going to begin on Samach Aleph Amid Beis by the two dots. Ad Shiyaber HaKayetz. So the Mishnah said that if a person says that they're not going to partake of certain food until the time in which the grains or olives or grapes are cut off. So we end up saying the word kayetz actually is referring to the use of ripping out with your hands and not with a knife. And therefore, it must be referring to specifically that of the harvesting of figs, because grapevines you need a knife. Even though Rosh Hashanah disagreed and said, no, that's not the case, because sometimes if the grape stems get dried up, you can even rip them out with your hands. But if a person says, until ad shiyabar kayetz, ad shichbo hamakzois, we say we are not allowed to eat these foods until a person actually folds up the knives that are used for cutting. So Tana ad shiachbiu rov hamakzois. It's actually until the majority of the people do it, not all of them. Once we have the majority of the people that stop doing it, then all of a sudden it's allowed. As we continue to Samach Beis Amud Aleph, Tana hukvulu roib hamukzois, that once you have the majority of the people that put away their knives, which basically means they're not harvesting these figs anymore, these owners, mutaris mishum gezel. It's not an issue of stealing anymore. And Rashi says, similar to the Rashi, that the owners give up hope from the time that they put away these knives. You know that they're not interested in them anymore. They gave up on them. They're considered ownerless, and therefore, for that reason, anyone can take them. It's not gezel, which we're going to see why that's an important detail. Upaturas min ma'isers. You're also patur from ma'aser, and because they're hefker. The way that the Ran says it, because based on the pasuk in Sefer Devarim, Yuvaha Levi ki enu chelak manach limach yatsa hefker sheishul chelak manach limach. Okay, for whatever reason, the Ran needed to bring that pasuk. Regardless, Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda ikulahu atra. So all these great rabbis, they entered into a particular city. Bizman shuchbu rov hamakzois. Basically, all of the crops, therefore, and the figs were free for the taking. Rabbi havi ka'achol, so he was eating them. However, Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda lo'achol, he refused to. Even though l'chayra, as we just learned, they're hefker. So asa marhoin, so the master of the field came about and he saw what was going on. The owner of these figs, of the field. I wouldn't say the figs because they're ownerless. She says, why aren't some of these rabbis eating? It's hefker. Like, what's the reason why no one's going to eat this? So even that's true. He still didn't want to eat it. Maybe this person was actually speaking in a form of sarcasm. Not that he was saying, oh, why don't the rabbis eat? After all, it's hefker. He wasn't really saying it with sincerity. He was saying, like, what's going on over here? These are still mine. I don't want them to eat them. So that was the reason why he felt, even though Me'ikar Din, they are completely hefker and there's no din gezel, he still didn't eat them. Rabbi Chama bar Rabbi Chanina ikulahu atra. So Rabbi Chama went to a city, Bizman shehukbu roiv hamakzois. Again, a time in which all the knives were put away, and therefore no one's cutting these crops anymore, and therefore they're hefker. Havi kachol, and he was eating them, which is what you're allowed to do. So Yoiv l'shame, he gave it to his servant, and lo yachol. And even though the master ate them, Rav Chama, but the servant didn't. Armulei echol, he said, why don't you eat it? There's no reason why you cannot eat it. So the servant, not that he didn't do it because he was machmir, he just didn't know. So once he was told, then he was able to partake. Rav Tarfon, so we have this unbelievable story now of Rav Tarfon, the great Rav Tarfon. Ashkacheyahu Gabra, so he came across a person, Bizman Shechvul HaMakzois, and he started eating them. So Rav Tarfon had every right to be able to eat these figs because they're a hefker. But the person, for whatever reason, caught Rav Tarfon, even though he was allowed to eat them, and achte b'saka, and he stuck him into a sack. He put the great Rav Tarfon into a sack, V'shakle, and he was like taking him, v'amte lemishte benahar, he was going to throw him into the sea. He was going to basically have him drown in this sack. Amrulos, Rav Tarfon said out loud, quote, Oy lo Tarfon, referring to himself, woe was to Tarfon, Shezeh Hargo, that this person is going to see my demise. I'm going to be killed by this guy. So he didn't know it was the great Rav Tarfon. So Shama Hugav, this person heard it, Shavchi v'Arak. He left him and he ran away because he realized there's no way a gadol b'toyru like Rav Tarfon would have did anything wrong. So Amar Rabbi Avo Mishur Rabbi Chanan ben Gamaliel Kol Yom Shalois Tzadik. All the days of Rav Tarfon Hayimet Star El Davar Zeh. This story always bothered him. Omar, he said, Oily woe is to me, Shishtamshi b'kisra shel Torah, that I took advantage the fact that I have this kesser shel Torah, the crown of Torah, and therefore I took advantage of my position and my reputation, and therefore that's how I saved my life, which we're going to say, he should do anything to save your life. Anyone who does misuse the Kesef Torah, Nekam in Oilam, he should be removed from the world, be killed. Kabachaymer Uma Balshatzar, we went on the Kabachaymer from Balshatzar. Shishtamish B'Kli Kodesh, we know he went into the Beis HaMikdash. The Gemara Megillah talks about he thought the 70 years of Gol's bubble ended and still we weren't redeemed, so he got excited and he just came into the Beis HaMikdash. So he used the Kalim there, Shinasu Kli Choyl. But the truth is, these Kalim had lost their Kedusha, because it was not the time of the Beis HaMikdash. Shnem Ravova Peritzim, and the destroyers came, v'chilua, and profaned it. Kivan Shepartzum Nasachoil, that once they destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, it became no longer holy. So Nekrim and Oilam, but nonetheless Balshatzar was killed, the Dechsiv Bei B'Leile, on that night that he did this, Kotel Balshatzar, he was killed. So Mishtamish because these are just kalim, which are connected to the Beis HaMikdash. But the Torah itself, which is eternal, the kedusha can never be removed. Certainly, one who uses that in an improper manner will be killed, which again is what bothered him so much. Question 12. Hamshtamish b'kisro shatayruma anshu, death. Manolan, learn it from Balshatzar, who used the kli kodesh, which became chol. Kavachaymer, this which remains kodesh. Rav Tarfon kivandachi achol dehukva rabba mekatzais havi. The question is, what did he do wrong? He was eating hefker figs. Might sorry Hugaver, why is he in so much pain and anguish? He didn't do anything wrong to begin with. So what exactly is the problem? Why is he upset? Her answer is Mishum Dahu Habigan Vile in Vekuli Shaita. The truth is, this guy was looking, because there was always someone that kept really stealing from him all year round, and he didn't have the ability to catch him. V'kivan the Ashkechel Rav Tarfon, once he saw Rav Tarfon, Savar Hainu the Ganvan. He thought it must be that this is the guy who's been stealing from me all along. Yachi Amait Sir Nafshe. So then the question is, why is he in pain? Says the Ran, Iyam Bishlam Adoli Havi Kopid, how Gava, this guy didn't care. El he shite at that one time, Mishum Hachi Hamimit Steyer. Hech Lo Hadiu, why didn't he let him know? The Mizman Shahukvo Rel Mksais, Hefkerin in who he should have just told him that these things are Hefker. Vinami Lot Sayisle, even if you want to tell him he wouldn't listen, the Mishalim Yahu Porta, you could have paid him off that small amount. Okay. Skipping a few more lines in the Ran, Mihu Davka B'chi Hagavna Hu Da'asim Yishum Dahu Gavra Dain Hayachayshtai. This person was still chayshid him, Chabad Tairaso Hu Shanichai, and therefore he used Chabad Torah to save himself. Abavadi lifter Atzma B'Chabad Torah B'Masha Enu Chayiv Bo Shari. But to pot yourself using Kavod Torah for something which you're not chayiv, you didn't do anything wrong, certainly it's permissible. But the problem is that this person was chayshid. Even though he didn't do anything wrong, but this guy thought he was doing something wrong. So shari le'lotzimar abanan lameimro lo yavina karga. A person can say I'm a Talmid Chacham, so he doesn't have to pay taxes. Shari le'nam lameimro shari tigri. Beresha, let me be judged first in court, so I don't have to sit around all day. So in that situation, we do allow a Talmid Chacham to speak up. So it's not that you can't speak up, but it's only when it's permissible. However, in this situation, the person who owned this field thought that this person was doing something wrong, and there was someone doing something wrong. He was chayshid him that this was the guy who was doing something wrong. So asking since he was very rich, he could have just simply have given him money. He could have bribed himself out. He didn't have to use Torah to get out. Instead, he used his credentials to get himself out. Question TA7. Question TA7 says as follows. Maduat Sariyahu Gavril or Tarfin Vari Huchvu Hamiksois. So what was his problem? The answer is because someone was stealing from him the whole time and he thought it was him. And the question is Madua Mutter Hari Kaimalan Geduli wrong question. Madu Rav Tarfin Sir Nafshe you can let him know, right? So the answer is but you didn't have to tell him you're a chacham. Oh, because what you could have done, it's interesting the way the question's written. This is ches. There's a mistake on this test. Let's see. It really should be Zion, right? This is Zion. Yeah, this is Zion. Okay. So it's because of it. So again, he could have been Matthias with Damim. He could have just given money, and that would have been good enough. Okay. Fine. So then the Gemara says as follows: Tanya la'abas Hashem l'kachal l'shmoy b'koiloi, to love Hashem and to listen to His voice, l'davkabo, to attach to Him. Shal yomer adam, a person shouldn't say Ekra shakruni chacham. I'm going to learn Torah, so I should be called a wise. Eshna, I'm going to learn shakruni Rabbi, so I'll be called a teacher. Ashan shehi zakin, v'yeshiv yeshiva. I'm going to sit in this prominent place. El laman mi'ava. You're supposed to learn Torah from love. The Seifa Kavod Lavoi. Eventually, you'll get honor, but you should not do it for the sake of honor. You should do it for the love of learning Torah. You should do it for the sake of wanting to learn, and then all the benefits come afterwards. Shnemar, Kashrim al etzbosecha, tie it on your finger. Kasvim al luach libecha, and write it on the tablet to your heart. Va'omer, and furthermore, Pasuk says, that your ways will be pleasant. It's true. If you're attached to it, it will be Neitz Chaim. The Samcheha Me'ushar, and those who support it will be wealthy. Rabbi Lezer on Tzaddik Omer, Aseh Devar L'Shem Po'alam. You should do everything for the sake of Hashem. V'daber Behem L'Shmam, and you should speak the words L'Shma. Al Tasim Atorah L'Sgadol Behem. You shouldn't make a crown to become great from it. Al Tasim Koidram L'Yos Oider Boy. You should not make a shovel in which that you should be digging with it. Again, you shouldn't be using it for your own benefit. The Kabbalah Mabal Shatz Shtamish El Bekli Kodesh Shanasu Kli Chayil Nekam Oilam. So again, Mishtamish Bekisher Shel Torah Alachas Kama V'Kama. So again, we use the same Kabbalah by Balshazzar. He was killed, so too a person should not misuse Torah. Amr Rava Alachas Kama V'Kama. Amr Rava Sharil Inish Le'edui Nashe. He's allowed to announce that he is a Talmid Chacham Ba'asra to a city. Do Yadule, that people don't know about it. You're allowed to let people know that you're a Talmid Chacham. That your servants will fear Hashem from their youth. El Kasha Rav Tarfin. The Rav Tarfin's question is, if that's the case, Rav Tarfin was allowed to tell him he was a Talmid Chacham. So why was he so upset? Again, as we said before, the Asher Gadol Haya, the Havi Le'Lefaisa B'Domim. He could have used money instead to have bribed himself out of this predicament. So Rami asked a contradiction. Ksiv avadcha yares Hashem minurav, uksiv yahalucha zar v'lo picha. It says, let it be through a stranger should praise you and not your own mouth. So is it that you're allowed to announce that you're Talmid Chacham, or you should keep it to yourself. So if people don't know you, then you could tell. But if people know that you're a Talmid Chacham, you don't have to brag about it. A young Talmid Chacham could announce, I'm a Summa Rabbanon. Sharli Tigra'i, Beresha. And also, when it comes to court cases, I should be able to be seen first, as the Ran says, Piskuli Dini Techila. Let me take care of my court case first. I don't have to stick around. David Kohanim Hayu. Ma Kohen Noitel Barosh. Kohen takes first. Talmid Chacham Noitel Barosh. Question 13. Ksiv b'nei David Kohanim. V'chi Kohanim Hayu. They weren't Kohanim. It means that they were Chachamim. V'hayu dinim ki Kohanim Litel Barosh. It just means that they had the same status as a Kohen. So the Kohen Minolan. How do we know a Kohen takes first? Dichsiv. V'kidashto ki es lechem Hashem al kechahu makriv. Latana Rabbi Shmuel v'kidashto yilchol davar shem kedusha. When it comes to all matters of sanctity, as we continued on Samach Beis Mid Beis, liftayich rishayin, they should be able to open first. As Rashi says, for Kriyas Torah, they should get the first aliyah, just like a Kohen. So if there's no Kohen, bimkum Kohen, so you should give it to a Talmid Chacham, or maybe even with a Kohen. So question what that means. Levarich rishon, they should get the first bracha, which is referring to Berachas. The Rashi says Berachas Hamotzi, Berachas Hamazain, V'lital Mani Yafe Rishon. They should be able to, if things are being divided up, they should be able to get the first portion themselves, just like the Kohen gets the lechem upon him. So Amar Rav Shariul Tzumar Rabban Lameimar, a young Talmid Chacham would say, "Well, Yavina a karga," and I shouldn't have to pay taxes. Tichsiv minda bolay v'halachla sholet lamirme alei hoin. So it says that we will not put the taxes upon them. Yom Rabbi Yehuda minda zu Menasa Melech. So when it says minda in the pasuk, that's referring to Menasa Melech, which is again some type of a tax on the king gives. Beloi zu kesef gulgalta. This is a head tax. V'halach, when it says in the pasuk halach zu arnona, which is brought down in Masechtas Pesachim. Arnona is a king's meal. Yom Rava Sharli L'Tzur Merabban L'Meimer Yom Talmid Chacham say Av de Denura Ana, that a servant worshipped fire. That's what it literally means. Let's look in the Ran. Eved Avda, an Eved Leish Shehu Kayin. You can say to a Kayin L'Oivdei Aish, those who serve fire. She'avada Peturin Mekarga, that they should be pater from taxes. Lo havi kemoide be'avodas kachavim. It's not comparable to taxes to avodas kachavim. Demucha milsaloi amar hachi el afturi mekarga. He only said this so he wouldn't have to pay taxes. The chi kaimer summa rabbanan ravusa kaimer. They feel summa rabbanan sharli l'meimer hachi. Could say this. Dein sporin le'avodas kachavim v'hu libul shemayim. Even though he was, it sounds like it's for avodas kachavim, but his heart was in the right place. Lo yavina karga. My taima lavruchi arya minei kamer. He's just doing to like run away from a lion from having to pay these taxes. Ravashi havile ho abba. There was this forest. Zavni lebein nura. Amul Rabbeinu Ravashi ha'ikuf neivro sitin mechshol. So how could, if in fact there is this wood in which is used for avodah zara, so then how is he able to sell it? Isn't there an issue of lifting ivro sitin mechshol? So Amalei rov eitzim hasakanitna. Most wood is used for fire, says the Ran. It's not used for idol worship. It's possible you can hang it on a heter. If there's a way to get around this heter, we're going to take it, and therefore you'll be able to have sold it. Question 14. Why is there no issue of selling wood? Those who serve with fire, they can use it for avodah zara, because most wood is a hasakan nivatlina b'hatera. So that's what we just saw. Okay, let's see the next Mishnah. Actually, let's see question TB8, which we actually already saw. Ksiv David hakohanim hayu I v'chi kohanim hayu? No. But a Talmid Chacham has the same privileges as a Kohen, that he gets kibudim first, taxes off, etc. As David was a Chacham, he is like the Kohanim in this way. Good answer. TB8, which is basically the same question as we had, which is question 13. Let's see the next Mishnah. Masnisin ad hakatzir. If a person says ad hakatzir, or until the harvest, ad shiyaskel ha'am liktzar, it means until the people in the city or in the nation begin the process of harvesting, because it's ad v'lo b'chal, it's not inclusive. A person says katsir, and it's specifically katsir chitin, that of wheat, and the Ran explains v'karli katsir stam, that when a person says this, just plainly, it's referring to wheat. Of a lo katsir sa'ayim, it's not referring to barley. Hakol afi makom, but the truth is, all these languages is all totally on the place. Nidroi. Im hayu bahar. If he was in a mountainous region, then that's where he's specifically referring to. That's where the reaping, the beginning, it starts. Im hayu bebika, in the valley. So as we look in the Iran, Kalemer, Mistama, B'chol Makam Mikri Katsir Chitim. It always means wheat. But im bim koim nidro, the place, you go basar the location. Now, what if a person says ad hageshamim, until the rain? So here we're going to see a mach locus. Ad shiu hageshamim, until it rains. An ad sheterid revia shnia, until the second rainfall. Until the usual zman, the usual time. Even if it doesn't actually rain, but during this time it generally does rain, that itself is enough. Look in the Ran. Gimel zmanim hein shel geshamim. It's 3 times. B'chol zman kari riva, and they're called rivia. These are different times of rain. Al shem shel geshamim roivetzim al aretz. Like more in Tainus, I believe, talks about this, that it penetrates the water into the ground. That's why it's called riva, because it goes into the ground. V'katani the mitzar acheter rivia shnia. You're usher based on the lashon of this neder until the second rainfall. Mishum destama shnia mashma. You mean the second? She'enu mekdemes kolkach k'rivia rishayna. You wouldn't have meant so far back, so far in advance. That's referring to even the first rainfall. V'lo ma'acheres, not so far. Kolkach ashlishis. Fine. So it's somewhere in the middle. Again, this is talking about a situation which is ein zman kavua. As we said before, if it's ein zman kavua, then a person generally is referring to the earlier time. And then the Mishnah concludes, ad sheyifseku hageshamim. What if a person says, actually let's finish this next round, ad shegi zman shel revia, alpha pi shel yardu, Rav Shmuel says, even if it didn't rain yet, sometimes it rains much later. It's just the time, the general time of season when it usually rains, but not necessarily when it rains actually. So again, now let's go back to the Mishnah. Until the rain stops. Cool until the month of Nisan ends, which is the end of the rainy season. Devar Amer, until the end of Pesach. Okay, so look in the Gemara. Tanya hanoider ad hakayitz. A person makes a neder ad hakayitz begolil in the city of Golil b'yard la'amakim, and he goes down to the valleys. Even though it's true, it has reached this time of harvest in the valleys. Also, because we go basar where the neder took place. So since you made the neder in Golil, even the process takes place later on over there. So the din is we go after not where you are now, but it's totally on where you are. Where you made the neder. Ad hageshamim, ad she hageshamim, ad she tered revir shni or shemula omer b'chul. Is it actually the second rainfall or the time of the second rainfall? Omer zer machlokes, the omer ad hageshamim. The whole machlokes is only when you said until the rain. Abel omer ad hageshem. If you only said until geshem, you didn't say geshamim, azman geshamim koimer. So in that situation, if you say ad geshem, it just means the time of geshem. Okay, so that is the again the machlokas is because you said geshamim and not just geshem. So look at this Ran. Umakshu hacha milo mashmule namle tanakam ad geshem. You read a mamish, maybe it means real rain. When he says the word geshem, how do we know it's zman geshamim? Maybe it means actual rain. What's the difference between these two words? So the Ran says time de medina ad shigia mashma. Ad usually means up until. Anytime it's not kavua, always it's the beginning of it. A person's not going to put themselves into a doubt. So when it comes to the Tanakama, we'll say it can rain very late. So therefore, a person is not going to put themselves in that situation. So maybe it's referring to the time of the Zman. Skipping to the last line of the Ran, Miu ba'ad hageshamim. When you say geshamim, who deplete, yivan the sagle or meimer ad geshem. You could have just said geshem. Yomer ad geshamim. The fact that you added that on top of samach and aleph, svir l'rabanan l'tfuye k'asi. You're adding on something when the rain actually comes. So it's possible it's not when you say ad geshamim. That's where the machlokas is. The Rabbanan will say, "Oh, why are you adding on to it? It must be when the rain actually comes." Because you could have just said ad geshem. Ad geshem means the rain season, the time, the zman geshamim. The fact that you added words according to the Rabbanan, not according to Rav Shem Gamliel, he also says the same thing. It's still zman geshamim, but according to the Rabbanan, since you said geshamim, you added words, so therefore the din is, over there they argue and say it actually has to rain. So let's continue on Samach Gimel Mud Aleph. Meisvei Ezu Hizman Shel Revia. What is this time of rainfall? So Habachira, the first rains is Begimel, is on the third day of the month of Mar Cheshvan. Beinanis, second rain is Beshiva, is on the 7th of the month. Apila, the last of the rainfall is Be'esrim Shloisha, the 23rd. Dear Rabbi Yehuda Omer, this is all Masat Tainus. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Beshiva Aser, Ve'esrim V'sholish. It's actually 17 and 23. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Beshiva Aser, it's the 17th, is the first rain. Ve'esrim, the 20th, Ushloisha, and the Esrim Shloisha, the 23rd. Ve'chodesh Kislev. And then a week later, in the month of Kislev. Because, as the Masechtas Tainus talks about, if there's no rain, at a certain point, people are going to be fasting for the rain to come. Now, it's going to be specifically at a time in which rain usually comes, and therefore he says the Yechidim would not fast until Rosh Chodesh Kislev came, because it could have rained even up until that point. So once it hasn't rained, it's already Rosh Chodesh Kislev, that's when we're worried. And that's when they start fasting. I understand the benefit of the first rainfall is Lisha'el, is it tells us when is the time we should start asking for rain by saying V'sein Talmud Bracha, which is on the 7th of Mar Cheshvan. Shlishis, the third, also is Lasanos, as we said, teaches us this notion of actually according to this opinion, it's B'Shiva Aser, the 17th of Kislev, so of Mar Cheshvan, and Rosh Chodesh Kislev is to tell you when the Yechidim start to fast. What is the whole purpose? And the Gemara over there gives a bunch of answers. Let's see how many they give here. As we said, when it comes to our situation of making a neder, so it's talking about the Revi'ah Shniya. And we said over there, rain that falls down, Shiva Yomim, 7 days one after the other, Atamoyim Revi'ah Rishayna Ushniya. You can count the first and second rainfall, Kaman, Karav Yosi. So that is in accordance to the Shita of Rav Yosi. So let's look in this Ran before we see the answer. So, Ein Hayechinim Masanin, Tamini Chachamim HaMasanin Mispalin Al Geshamim, Hiskil Hayechinim Masanis only by Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Lishoil, as Ran says, is Saint Talmud Avracha, when Noider, Sheim Nader Ad Geshamim, which is our Mishnah, Aser Ad Revi'ah Shniya, the second rainfall, the Stam Geshamim Revi'ah Shniya Mashma, Shein Makdemis o Macheres. So he said, who is this like? Rav Yossi, Yomi Yud Zayin V'chav Gimel, because he makes a 7-day break between the first and second rainfall, which is what we're said over here, that it's Shiva Yomim Zachazeh. So that must be like the Shita of Rav Yossi. Now, skipping a few lines of the Ran, Rav Shimon Gamaliel l'Devareim du Rabbanan Kamar Lahu l'Didi lo Kapida. According to me, I'm not makbid, but miridias geshamim klal el bezmanon. He always holds that it's totally on the. It has nothing to do with the rain. It has to do with the time of the rain, no matter what the language is. Gesher geshamim el didchu. According to you, nehi granted the kabdi to birida mamish. That you say when it comes to Geshem, it has to be actually rainfall, skipping a few lines. We're thinking that we're talking about a situation where they made the neder ad Geshem. Dahachi havi or chayu inchi, because this is the normal way of making a neder. V'im isa Rav Zeir the Amr the bad hageshem kulu moidu. According to him, he says we all agree the ad gives man kaimer. It's the time. So it has nothing to do with actual rainfall. So the more answers, Hahu di Omer ad hageshamim. It's not talking about, you didn't say ad geshem, you said ad geshamim. And when you say ad geshamim, according to the Rabbanan, yes, it is totally on the actual rainfall. Okay. Let's see if there's another question over here. No, and... What is this question? This is Nun Samach Gimel. No, Adkan.